This is going to be a response to a recent video from Biblical Mastery Academy made by Dr. Darryl Burling, where he challenges the conventional way of learning and teaching biblical Greek verbs. First of all, this is what you are not going to see in this video. Darryl and I, we are colleagues. We work in the same field. We try to promote biblical Greek literacy on the internet. So I learn a lot from him. I love what he does and highly respect him. And so you're not going to see any bashing or fists flying or blood spilled in this video, okay? So everything will be done in the respectful manner. And what you are going to see is an alternative opinion. And this is how the academic world works. So what was his video is all about? Let's summarize. So he says that the conventional way of teaching Greek verbs is to start with the present tense and then go to all the other tenses and eventually reach the aorist tense. He says that this approach is not really good, it's wrong, and it's better to start with the aorist. The main reason behind it is that the aorist is the most common verb to drive the narrative, to drive the story. And also the aorist has the purest stem for the verbal form, which is correct. And this is pretty much it. I actually expected that he's gonna give more reasons to convince me and to convince the audience why we should start with the aorist. But instead, he actually did the opposite. He went and he listed all of the good reasons why the conventional textbooks start with the present tense verbs first, and then he lists all of the weak points why the aorist is moved further down in the textbooks. And at the end of his video, he says that there's 2 grammar books which actually start with the aorist, and I have one of those books, so I reviewed it, so I'm gonna say a few words about that as well. So me personally, I wasn't really convinced because Darryl just didn't give enough evidences why I or anybody else would switch and start with the aorist verbs first. And now I'm going to list several very strong arguments why I personally believe it is better to start with the present tense verbs. Reason number 1. Lexical forms for verbs are the present active indicative forms. So it is just a matter of convenience. Yes, Darryl says that the only reason why lexicons use the present forms is because we start teaching verbs from the present tense. However, he says if we would start teaching with the aorist form, then eventually all the lexicons could also switch to the lexical form to be an aorist. And I have a question. Who is gonna do it? Who is gonna rewrite all the lexicons? And another question, when is it gonna happen? Even if all the textbooks switch to aorist first, it will take a lot of time for all the lexicons to be redone. So, when is it gonna happen? 50 years from now? 60? 100? I don't know. I just do not see this happening. And so it is a matter of inconvenience if you start teaching with the aorist, but then explain to your students that the lexical form is actually the present tense form. The second reason is the reason of simplicity. You see, the present active indicative verbs are very simple. On the other hand, aorist verbs are very complex. And Darryl mentions all sorts of complexities in his videos. First aorist, second aorist forms, regular and irregular, augments, prefixes, suffixes, and all other complex ideas which relate to aorists. So why would we put this burden on the shoulders of the students and load them with all of those complex ideas when we can start with the simple present forms and add tidbits of information as we progress through the tenses. To me, it makes a lot of sense to start with the present tense verbs and then introduce new elements as we learn new tenses. For example, on the imperfect level, we introduce the augment, and then when we learn future, we introduce the suffixes, and only then move to the aorist, which has both augment and the suffix together with its second aorist forms. In fact, it will be much easier for students to master the second aorist when they already know the imperfect, because the imperfect and aorist, they share the same augment and the same endings. The only difference between them is the pure stem of the second aorist. The reason number 3 is the reason of experience. In his video, Darryl states that the conventional way of starting with the present verbs has been going for more than 200 years. And this speaks volumes. It shows experience that many teachers before me and before Darryl, they tried many different methods, and yet they chose to stick with the present tense first. On the other hand, Darryl says that there are at least 2 books which begin teaching verbs with the aorist. And I have one of those books written by Decker. And when I opened, at least my edition of the book shows that no, he doesn't start with the aorist. He actually starts with the present tense verbs too. As we can see, chapter 7 in this book is dedicated to the aorist verbs, but chapter 5 is dedicated to the basics of verbs. And in this chapter, he goes into the present active indicative verb. So unfortunately, it appears like a small shortcoming, but no, Decker does not start with the aorist. He starts with the present active indicative verbs, and there is a big reason behind it. And this leads us to the point number 4, which is the cornerstone paradigm. And the reason number 4 is the cornerstone paradigm. Let me present it to you in a very special way. The Bible calls Jesus the cornerstone which builders rejected. And when the builders rejected the cornerstone, the whole structure collapsed. Because the cornerstone is that foundational stone upon which the entire building is structured. And if that stone is removed, the structure will be shaky, eventually it will lean and fall. And the cornerstone paradigm for the entire biblical Greek verbal system is the present active indicative paradigm. If the builders or the teachers will reject it, the entire verbal system is going to collapse in biblical Greek. And this is the reason why I placed this paradigm in the very corner of my verbal chart here. Because this paradigm holds the entire verbal system together. If you understand this paradigm, you will be able to recreate the entire verbal chart right here. You will be able to understand how all the other paradigms are formed in any tense and also vertically in any mood. And I was thinking maybe it is possible to build the cornerstone from the aorist paradigm. And honestly, I just do not see how it's possible. So maybe some of you can try it, and maybe you can build that kind of unified system where the aorist paradigm will be that cornerstone which will hold everything together. But I just do not see it. And for that reason, present active indicative is going to stay. Maybe if somebody develops that paradigm, I will be happy to take a look. If you understand the present active indicative and why it is the most important paradigm, then the entire verbal system will be very easy for you. And so if you want my Greek paradigm charts, verbs, and all the other paradigms, you can order them on my website. I also have the big poster which has even more paradigms, so you can order them on my website. I will be more than happy to send them to you. I hope you enjoyed this video and it helped you to see 2 alternative opinions. And now I want to ask you, what makes sense more to you? Should we continue learning Greek verbs starting with the present tense, or should we switch to the aorist tense? Now, if this video gave value to you, please like it, comment below, and subscribe to receive more videos like this. I wish you all the best. Learn Greek, love God. I'll see you in the next video.